tradition.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the Malacañang Press Corps. Welcome to the press briefing of Presidential Spokesperson Harry Roque. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We just concluded our successful hosting of the 31st ASEAN Summit and related summits. We'd like to thank everyone, especially the Filipino people, for their support and cooperation in making this event peaceful, orderly, fruitful, and very much a success. Also, the President welcomed Premier Li Keqiang of the People's Republic of China, who was here in the Philippines for an official visit where 14 agreements have been signed. I'm ready to take your questions now.
Okay, the floor is now open for questions. Any questions regarding the recently concluded ASEAN First? Pia Renada of Rappler.
Hi, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Pia.
Sir, the South China Sea Code of Conduct was a major discussion point during the recently concluded summit. And there have been talks that the Code of Conduct might become non-legally binding. I just like to get the position of the President on this. Does he want it to be legally binding or not?
I think the consultations on the Code of Conduct was rather substantial because the different countries contemplated a code of conduct that would in fact be legally binding. No? I think this was clear from the language also of the framework agreement that they previously entered into, no? Which signaled the commencement of the talks for the code of conduct. I think that was a priority of the President because unless it becomes legally binding, we would not achieve the kind of predictability that all the countries want in order to achieve peace and stability in the region.
So, sir, the President wants it to be
I think
legally
all the
binding.
parties want it to be somehow legally binding. Otherwise, if it's merely aspirational, then it will not promote the kind of peace and stability that they're hoping for. But anyway, we're only about to commence the process of negotiating a code of conduct. So we will see.
Follow-up question? Leila Salaveria of Inquirer.
Sir, good morning. Clarification lang, is that the official position? Because the Foreign Affairs Secretary was earlier quoted as being worried about insisting on the code of conduct being legally binding because, and China doesn't want it to be legally binding.
Well, as I said, they're only about to commence. I think the aspiration is that it should somehow be binding because that is the key to stability in the region. But we will see how negotiations go. Since we haven't even started with negotiations, we do not know what countries will agree upon. But as far as we're concerned, we would want it to be legally binding. No? But we will see. As I said, it's only about to commence. We do not know what they will agree upon, but it is still a milestone because for the first time, we have an agreement that countries should conduct themselves in a certain manner.
Sir, how much of a factor is China's opposition to the idea? Since we're becoming friendlier with China, are we going to take that into account when we craft our official position?
I don't think there is any Chinese opposition because one of the gains achieved from the recent ASEAN summit is the fact that China has made it clear that they're willing now to commence talks on a code of conduct. So I don't think that signifies opposition. On the contrary, I think that signifies a willingness to talk about a code of conduct.
No, sir, about the conduct being legally binding.
We don't know yet, as I said. No, we don't know what they will agree upon because we're only about to commence. I hope we're very clear here. No, but from the language of the President, he has put a premium and a lot of importance on the code of conduct because we want to achieve predictability. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next question? Philip Tebeza.
Sir, good morning.
Good morning.
Xinhua, the state news agency of China, is quoting President Duterte as promising Xi Jinping during their meeting in Vietnam that the Philippines will now properly handle maritime issues with China based on bilateral consensus via bilateral channels. Is it correct to say that this is a policy shift on the part of Manila, since we're now agreeing with the long-standing Chinese position that maritime disputes should be resolved bilaterally?
I do not know if this is a major shift, but what I do know is President Duterte has been consistent that he is open to bilateral talks as far as resolving the conflict is concerned. He has said it time and again that he does not see any utility in talking to third parties who are not parties to the conflict. No? And yes, I can confirm the report that the President has articulated preference for bilateral talks rather than multilateral talks in resolving the dispute. However, China also raised or also stated that they have very good bilateral relations with all the claimant countries. So while they have said that they are pursuing bilateral relations, they have done so. They have done so with all the other claimant countries, and China assured us that they have excellent bilateral relations with all the claimant countries as of today.
Where does this leave the arbitral ruling that we got from?
Again, I will state it. No, this does not in any way affect the arbitral ruling. To begin with, the arbitral ruling is only binding on the Philippines and China. That's the effect of arbitral awards. It's only binding on parties there too. No, so the arbitral ruling does not promote multilateral solution to the South China Sea because it's only binding on China and the Philippines. Secondly, the award itself is self-executory. The Philippines does not have to do anything else to implement that decision. That's the distinction between international and domestic law. The statement or the ruling of the arbitral body is completely executory. Nothing else is left to be done by anyone.
Wouldn't this leave us at a disadvantage since the Philippines is not exactly an emerging, global superpower if we're going to deal with this issue bilaterally?
Well, as you have seen, no, one thing that became very clear in the ASEAN summit is the tension. I think there's consensus amongst all claimant countries and amongst Southeast Asian countries that there is now easing of tension as a result of the South China Sea disputes. No? So on the contrary, I think the fact that countries have now adopted their current positions has led to further stability in the region and has led to a tremendous reduction in tension, no, as far as claimant countries are concerned.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other question? Pia Gutierrez, ABS-CBN.
Hi, sir. Good morning. Sir, during the last few days, President Duterte had a number of bilateral talks with leaders of many countries. I just want to know if there are other leaders aside from Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau who have brought up the issue of human rights in their talks.
I will say it again. As far as the public bilateral talks were concerned, no one expressly raised the issue of human rights. I verified with the President that in passing, Prime Minister Trudeau mentioned Canadians' commitment to human rights. But as far as he went, no, because the President would not have had it any other way. I think you saw how emphatic he was, that he will not tolerate states interfering in what the President perceives as purely domestic affairs. So I'm confident that beyond stating that Canada is firmly committed to human rights, nothing else was said in the private and very short talk between President Duterte and President Trudeau, and this was immediately before the ASEAN-Canada dialogue.
Sir, following up on the bilateral talks, are there other leaders aside from China and U.S. who have pledged support or financial support for the rehabilitation of Marawi?
Japan has also pledged that, no? And I think in general, or the other countries of Southeast Asia acknowledge, no, that they have an obligation to assist each other in terms of in times of disasters, whether be it man-made or otherwise.
Thank you, sir.
Any more question? Okay. Ina Andalong, CNN Philippines.
Sir, going back po dun sa COC, the President said that China is also considering fast-tracking the process for the drafting of the COC. Did we get any assurance or an idea from China when, or if indeed, if a fast-track nila, and if they said anything about possibly maybe coming up with a final draft during President Duterte's term?
There was no timetable mentioned, no? Although they all agreed that they will commence negotiations early next year or 2018.
Did the President, as chairman, sir, express any desired deadline or timeline?
I think there was a consensus that they should commence and conclude as soon as possible, but there was no timeline.
Thank you.
Follow-up question, Leila.
Sir, is the Philippines going to push or insist on the mention of the arbitral ruling in the Code of Conduct, considering that while it's a case between the Philippines and China, it's also an interpretation of international law?
I don't see how it will in fact figure in the Code of Conduct, because Code of Conduct is what it is, no? And as I said, the arbitral ruling is binding on China and the Philippines
But
only.
Even as a basis of setting
Well,
legal-
even from my limited engagement in treaty drafting, I don't see how it can figure actually, considering that the Code of Conduct is going to be applicable to all claimant countries and to all countries in Southeast Asia, including China. So I don't see how it can figure, other than I anticipate that the general framework by which the Code of Conduct will be adopted will be recognizing freedom of navigation and overflight, which again was recognized as indispensable and necessary by all the countries of ASEAN and their partners in this latest summit.
So the arbitral ruling didn't set any jurisprudence. That's
Well, number one, in international law, there is no such thing as stare decisis. All decisions of international tribunals are only binding on the parties there too. The closest that we have by way of stare decisis is only the need to achieve uniformity in the rulings of international tribunals. No? There is, technically speaking, no jurisprudence in international law. But because of the need to achieve uniformity and predictability in decisions, then they don't deviate substantially from decisions laid down in these cases. No? But that's, and again, a major distinction between international and domestic law. There's no such thing as jurisprudence or stare decisis.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Pia.
Sir, so just to clarify, you don't see ASEAN taking into consideration the arbitral ruling when they craft the Code of Conduct at all?
Because it's a code of conduct, no? And I guess what they could possibly adopt are the principles of freedom of navigation and the principles of overflight, which are not necessarily forming part of the arbitral decision, because the freedom of navigation in high seas and EEZ is a general principle of international law as restated in the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. So when they restate the principles of freedom of navigation in the high seas and in the EEZ, they're not actually applying the ruling in the arbitral decision, but applying a principle under UNCLOS, which is a codification of the state of general international law.
Because the ASEAN always states also in its statements that it will respect the rules of law in the sea, and isn't this going to be part of the...
Well, you know, when we
that
say that
body of work?
we will abide with UNCLOS, it's because all the parties of ASEAN are parties to UNCLOS, and UNCLOS is recognized as a restatement of customary norms of international law. Customary norms of international law are binding on everyone. If they are restated in treaties, they bind even states that are not parties to the treaties. That's why the United States, although it is not a party to UNCLOS, is also bound by it. No? But when we say we recognize customary principles of international law, these are the principles that we are referred to, customary norms of international law.
Okay, sir, just on another issue, because ASEC Mocha Uson shared a meme or a post that basically misquoted Prime Minister Justin Trudeau as saying that it is impossible to take back the garbage that was illegally dumped here. What does is the palace concerned that the palace official is misquoting a head of government?
I would rather leave comments on that to Secretary Martin Andenar, whose office has jurisdiction over Assistant Secretary Mocha Uson.
But sir, does this not also affect your work as presidential spokesman, since we're dealing here with the head of government, trying to establish better relations with Canada, and then right after the ASEAN summit, are we not going to act on this, maybe speak to Mocha Uson about this particular error?
Unfortunately, I have no jurisdiction over the PCOO. I am a completely separate department, and I trust that PCOO will address this matter, if at all.
But previously, sir, you said that you would find time to lecture or talk to ASEC Mocha on other issues. Would this not be also a relevant issue to discuss with her?
I think it is better left to the PCOO to address. I will not take on additional job than is necessary for my office.
So, sir, no palace statement on this error at all?
No palace statement.
All right, sir, we have another question related to ASEAN from Lianes Capanti of Manila Times. She's asking, sir, is it time for ASEAN to amend its charter to adopt a policy of going with the majority vote instead of consensus building, as suggested by former Presidents Arroyo and Ramos? Counterproductive and restrictive na raw po kasi ang consensus building since it has been 50 years since ASEAN was founded.
Naku, that's beyond my pay scale. I can't speak for the rest of ASEAN. The states will have to decide on this matter, and all decisions adopted by ASEAN country states are adopted on the basis of consensus. So it's only up to the different ASEAN states to address that.
All right. Sir, another question from JP Bencito of Manila Standard. Why is it taking so long before the Philippines releases chairman's statement? Hinihintay na lang po bang makaalis si Premier Lee?
I don't know why, but I believe it's been posted. Am I wrong? Yun. It's being uploaded. So I don't think there's substantial delay. Come on, no? These people have been working so long for a whole year. And take note, too, that the same people were in charge of APEC and ASEAN. No? So you can imagine the stress and the workload of everyone. So I think it was not an unreasonable delay to release it.
All right. Other issues, Cedric Castillo, GMA 7.
Morning, sir.
Hi.
Sir, may I just get your reaction, sir? Because some opposition lawmakers are saying that ASEAN summit was no more than pageantry, and that no substantial issues or more important problems were discussed, sir. Can I get the palace's reaction on this?
Obviously, they did not know what happened beyond closed doors. I can assure you that the threat of nuclear annihilation is not a matter of pageantry. The need for peace and stability on the South China Sea is not a matter of pageantry. And of course, the issue of terrorism, the fact that terrorism today knows no territorial boundaries, is no pageantry. So I beg to disagree. And obviously, the opposition leaders who said this did not take time out to read the official accounts of how the summit went through, no? Or the outputs of the summit.
Sir, they were also zeroing in on issues on human rights and extrajudicial killings, sir, that they were not discussed at all, or if at least substantially during ASEAN, sir.
There were some discussions on the Rohingya issue, so that's not true again.
Sir, on another matter, sir, I'd like to get your reaction also. Earlier this morning during a White House briefing, President Trump mispronounced President Duterte's name. Surname? Can I get your reaction, please?
No slight taken. You know, I think that's another commonality between the two presidents. They've made mistakes in names.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Other issues? Sheila Frias, IBC 13.
Sir, just for palace reaction, the Philippine economy grew by 6.9% in the third quarter. According to PSA, this is higher than the market consensus of 6.6%.
That's good news. In fact, it was Secretary Dominguez who informed me they even adjusted the growth rate by 0.2%, which is very good news. That makes us the second fastest economy in Southeast Asia, next only to Myanmar, no? Because Myanmar is hitting 7%. No? But considering the level of our economy in comparison to Myanmar, I think ours is still the best performing economy so far.
Sir, where do you think this can be attributed to?
I think it's a kind of stability that the country is now enjoying. It's stability that brings about predictability, which brings out business confidence, no, investors' confidence. And that can be attributed to President Duterte's administration.
Okay. Any more questions? None? Yes, Tuesday New, DZBB.
Hi, sir. Sa ibang mga statements ni Presidente po, parang lumulutang na may plano ba siyang ibalik ulit sa PNP yung campaign on illegal drugs? Parang ngayon po ganun yung lumalabas.
Hindi ganoon ang basa ko, no, kasi yung last press ko niya after ASEAN, no, sinasabi rin niya ipagpapatuloy niya yung laban sa katiwalian sa PNP, no. So kung naniniwala siya na dapat ibalik na sa PNP, wala na sana ganung salita, no. Tingin ko bagong-bago pa lang yung order na niya ibalik sa PIDEA yung lead dito sa war against drug at pagbibigyan muna niya at titignan niya kung ito'y maging epektibo, no. Alam natin na kakaunti lamang ang manpower ng PIDEA, pero this is without prejudice naman to PIDEA, recruiting individuals from the police and even from the AFP if necessary.
Another thing, sir. Yung sa kaso po ni Kian de los Santos, nung una po, nakita natin kung paano siya na concerned doon sa cases of minors na napapatay with regard to campaign against illegal drugs. Pero recently, sir, parang twice incidents na parang nagpasaring siya na may mababago doon sa takbo ng kaso. Anong ibig niyang sabihin dito, sir?
Yung sa huli niyang press conference, and I don't know if you were there, no, binanggit na naman niya si Kian. At binanggit na naman niya yan in connection with yung katiwalian ng PNP. No? So I guess wala pong nababago sa paninindigan ng Presidente. Tiwala po siya sa kakayahan ng kapulisan at by and large, siya po ay naniniwala na pagkakatiwalaan ng PNP. Gayunman, ang kanyang paninindigan ay meron pa rin mga bulok sa PNP at hindi niya tatantanan hanggang hindi natatanggal yung mga bulok sa PNP. Kaya nga po inulit niya yung kaso ni Kian dahil inulit na naman niya ang pulisiya ng ating gobyerno na paninindigan niya at sasagutin niya ang pulis kung ang kanilang ginagawa ay sang-ayon sa batas. Kung ito'y labag sa batas, ipakukulong niya ang mga pulis.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Last two questions, Rose Navenario of Hataw, then Cedric.
Hi, good morning, sir.
Yes.
Sir, bago po nag-ASEAN, meron pong statement si PIDEA Executive Director Aaron Aquino na meron daw pong influential government official na di umano'y uma-arbor daw po nung sa pagkakaaresto po kay Diane Uy, yung anak po ni Yu Yoklay na sinasabing Shabu Queen po sa correctional. Meron po bang report dito si Director Aquino kay
Nako.
Presidente?
Asahan niyo pong talagang ipupursu ito ni Presidente. Aalamin kung sino yung nag-aarbor na yan at alam niyo naman ang paninindigan ng Presidente laban sa mga nagtutulak ng pinagbabawal na gamot. Iimbestigahan po ito at talagang malalagot kung sino man itong nang-aarbor dito sa drug queen ito.
At meron daw pong para may pagtatangka daw po na isa lang para mabigyan ng presidential pardon si Yu Yoklay.
Nako, ngayon pa lang po, sinasabi kong malabo po yan. Considering yung paninindigan talaga ni Presidente laban sa pinagbabawal na gamot.
Thank you.
That's wishful thinking.
Sir, pagkatapos sir nung bilateral agreement between Russia and the Philippines on nuclear studies, nuclear energy studies po, there are some sectors already voicing out opposition on nuclear energy, particularly the rehabilitation of Bataan Nuclear Power Plant. Anyway, sir, kahit wala pa tayong national position on it, what is the President's personal opinion on nuclear energy, sir?
Well, since personal ang tinatanong mo, no, tatanungin ko siya. No? Pero so far, 1 year and 4 or 5 months na siya sa kanyang katungkulan, wala naman siyang ginagawa para buksan muli yung Bataan Nuclear Plant. In fact, nagkaroon ng initial attempt na buksan nga yung BNPP, hindi po nangyari. No? So I suppose the President has not given his conforme in the reopening of the BNPP. But as far as his personal position on nuclear power, I will have to confirm with him what this is.
Thank you, sir.
All right, lastly, sir, may we just know, upon your observations, what is your overall assessment on the recently concluded ASEAN, particularly the security aspect, sir?
It was a tremendous success. Of course, now that all the guests are gone, there's a sigh of relief that there was not one untoward incident. All that could have happened was one explosion, even if no one was hurt, for us to have a major disaster in our hands. But thanks to the cooperation of the Filipino people, we averted such incidents, and the world community now recognizes not only the fact that the Philippine president is not just the president of the Philippines, a leader of Southeast Asia, but a recognized leader in the international community. And they have also given notice that the Philippines is able to competently host a bidding, a meeting of this scale and scope. And the fact that there was no untoward incident proves that the Philippines is safe to visit. Congratulations to the rest of the Filipino people. Siyempre po, mayroong mga naabala, lalong-lalo na dun sa closure ng EDSA. Pasensya na po kayo. Ang naging kapalit naman ay yung paghanga ng buong daigdig sa kakayahan ng bansang Pilipinas.
Alright. Sir, pahabol na lang. Our reaction po sa pagbubuhos ng US ng $2 million sa anti-drug campaign ni President Duterte. This was announced by the White House yesterday. Question from Bombo Tinaza of Raymond Tinaza of Bombo Radyo.
Sana sinabi niya ni President Trump dun sa bilateral nila, no, edi tuwan-tuwa talaga lalo si President Trump. But I'm sure, although it was announced belatedly that the Philippine President, President Duterte, will appreciate this commitment to the war against drug. That proves without doubt that the US President supports the war on drugs. Why would he otherwise give $2 million to this cause if he thinks it's not being implemented correctly?
Okay. Thank you very much, Malacañang Press Corps, and of course, Presidential Spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque.
Thank you and good morning to all of you.
Back to the main studio of PTV4 and Radyo Pilipinas.